and welcome to the Holistic Living, Learning, and Loving podcast, where we are bringing you back to the basics.
We explore sustainable living and holistic health and strive for progress, not perfection.
So please join us on a wellness journey and feel empowered to make positive changes in your life. Hey guys, today we are going to talk about relationships and our connection with people in our lives, and why, how that impacts our overall happiness in this life. We can be so consumed with work, and I know I'm guilty of consumed with future planning. Some people dwell in the past and think of that over and over. And then always with our social media and our lives that, we have all these distractions and we're not always focusing on what should be our number one priority, which is our relationships. And so today we are going to talk about what we can do to try to focus on being better partners, parents, better family, and better friends in this life, because our relationships are everything in this life. We are not put on this earth to work and make other people rich or even make ourselves rich. Our enrichment is in the lives that we get to be a part of. Seeing our children grow up, being a partner, having a great love in your life, and, our parents and our family and all that stuff. So we're going to talk about that today, and we hope that you enjoy. We hope that you like and subscribe, share with a friend, interact with us on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll get to it. So I feel like, there's a lot of things out there that kind of skew, the way we feel about our relationships. And I know a big one is, like, I'm an independent woman, honey. I don't need nothing from nobody.
Yeah, I think that's a really toxic thing society has taught a lot of women. Like, it's great to be able to take care of yourself and all that, but when you finally get into a good relationship with a man, the whole I don't need you for this
or whatever, or whoever that you're with.
Yeah, whatever. But just the whole I'm gonna do this myself. I don't need no man. All that, we need to feel needed. Each partner needs to feel needed, needs to have a role, needs to be respected in their role. And when there's no respect there, the relationship starts to fall apart. And I just feel like a lot of people don't respect each person's role in the relationship these days. I don't have to ask his permission to go out or hang out with this or do this or that. I do what I want. I think that's really ugly. And once you start respecting the other person's opinion in purchases or what you're going to do during the day, is a really lovely thing to do, and it shows a lot of respect and love for each other. And once you start to show more love and respect to each other, the relationship just starts to grow and blossom. And I feel like a lot of people don't even get to see that because they never get there.
Yeah, and I feel like it goes both ways. There's a lot, both partners can tend to do that independent, I'm going to do what I want. Like, there's a lot of men out there that are like, I work and I'm going to go out for beers afterwards, and have no respect for their partner.
Definitely.
So that both people can be responsible for that attitude in the partnership. And, another thing aside from that is just talking about how you feel and this bothers me, and not being accusatory.
Definitely.
I think the big thing that they say is I feel this way. It's not you always do this. It's I feel hurt because this happened,
Yeah, and I used to always think that was so cheesy and just silly to go to your significant other and be like, I feel or you hurt my feelings because this or whatever. But that makes such a huge difference when you can come to them and you're just honest. First of all, you have to be honest with yourself of why your feelings are hurt or why you feel the way you feel. And then you go to the other person and you calmly explain what they did and how it made you feel. And you'd be amazed at the response you get from them when you come at them differently. Instead of, you said, accusatory or hostile. Just subtle changes like that make a world of difference. And just communicating instead of giving silent treatments and being angry and bitter. Yeah, that is so toxic and will never allow any relationship to, you know, grow.
Yeah, and like sometimes, sometimes when I know in my own relationship, and not to get like too deep in it, but sometimes I'll say, "Hey, that hurt my feelings," or whatever, how you said that did this. And sometimes I don't get the instant reception of like, "Oh, I'm sorry," but over time, like maybe in 5, 10 minutes or later in the day or something, then he'll come and say, I like understand what you mean, and I should have done it this way. Because also, like, sometimes the other person, the other partner, needs time to think about it too.
Yeah.
Maybe their feelings are hurt because of something you said. It's like it's a two-way street.
Right. And we need to be able to have time to process, because maybe they weren't aware of what they did or what you did. Like, we have to think about it, It's hard to just have the right thing to say right away, and we need to be mindful of that and give people
Yeah, because
time.
everyone has had their own lives, their own traumas, their own experiences, things that dictated the people that they are. They all have their own dialogue in their head. Not everyone thinks the same way that you do. And you can't expect someone to like read your mind, or if you don't tell them, then they have no way of knowing.
Right. I know.
And even if you've been together a long time, if you still don't communicate, it doesn't matter. They can't read your mind.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. All working on all of those things has made like a enormous difference in my relationship, and like I would highly recommend anyone to just start taking those small little changes, because I think a lot of people might think they do those things, but a lot of people don't. Like, I hear people talk all the time, and they always talk about how they're giving this one the silent treatment because, I don't know, they didn't get them the right Valentine's Day gift, or like just super silly things. I mean, not to be judgmental, but like that's petty. It just is. I don't know.
Yeah, and
I
it's
don't know
like,
what to.
I know something I struggle with pretty regularly is like feeling like, well, I did this, and I like kind of feeling like you did more maybe in the relationship than your partner. Well, I did this, like in your head thinking, well, I did this and I did this and you didn't do that. And also with the mentality in the same respect of feeling like you did this to me. Like sometimes when Mike like kind of we have like an unspoken agreement that he usually does dishes in the morning. And like if he leaves it, sometimes I feel like, oh, he did this to me, like now I have to deal with it. And that's like, it's just not a good mind frame to feel like someone went out of their way to hurt you in some way.
Yeah.
Like that's absolutely not what happened. He did not do that to me. He was late or busy, or for whatever reason it didn't happen. And it's not his job to like always do that either. It's a partnership.
And it's just good that you recognize that, though. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to like feel that way, but being able to recognize that and admit it to yourself and make those changes is what makes the difference. That's all that matters. Like, we don't have to be perfect. We're never going to be perfect. We're always going to have our little flaws and get mad at silly things sometimes. But as long as we recognize them or apologize or whatever, then that's what makes healthy relationships.
Yeah, and like whenever I feel that way too, I try to think of the things that he does without me ever having to ask him, and think about how he contributes in the relationship, because obviously I don't do everything. That's like ridiculous. I do not. And then I try to think about those things that he always does for me, and how we're not tit for tat. Some
Right.
days, some days, it could be 50-50. Some days could be 80-20. Like some days I have nothing to give because I don't feel good or whatever, and he comes in and he like does it all. And so, not everyone's 100% every day, and not everything's 50-50 every day either.
Right.
So I think it's important to think about that. There's this funny like Instagram reel where like the husband always puts the clothes on the floor by the shower. He never like puts it in the laundry bin or whatever. And the like wife goes behind and like kind of rolls her eyes and picks it up and puts it in the laundry basket. And then in the next frame, it's the wife with like a ton of boxes from Amazon, and she just goes in the garage and like throws that shit down, and she does not care. And I'm like, yep, that's about right.
It is. And that's what a lot of people do. Like, a lot of people, we often like only see our side. We're not seeing the other person's side.
Yeah, it's important to try to like see something from someone else's perspective too,
Yeah.
especially your partner. Like, you owe that to them. Like, you're in this relationship for hopefully the rest of your lives. You should be able to try to put yourselves in their shoes and you know s- take account their feelings too,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
see what they do for you and for your family.
Yeah, 'cause like you said, they're definitely not out here just trying to get you. Otherwise,
Yeah.
they just wouldn't be there, at all. They didn't marry you just to pick on you all day.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. But that the silent treatment and the going tit for tat, well, I did this and you didn't do this, like that all like gets to that place where you're just being petty and you end up hating each other over time.
Yeah, and if you're ever in a spot where like you're just like your relationship's really toxic, I would urge you to just one of you needs to just start role modeling that better behavior, and it won't happen right away. But a lot of times, I feel like when one person starts to try to do more healthier communication and things like that, and the other person will start to recognize it and they'll start to reciprocate, and
Yeah.
and then it's just like a domino effect of healthy things after that, and that's just how it starts. But one person has to step up and just be the better person and start showing, like, be that role model of the healthy behavior you know
Yes, like, and we're going to talk about the couple times in this talk about how you need to display the the communication and the feelings that you would like to receive. If you are
Definitely.
not displaying happiness and respect and all those other things, then you cannot expect to receive that. It doesn't work that way in
Yeah.
any relationship. So,
So, with all of that spouse talk, I know another thing that can get in the way of your relationship with your spouse is um, always putting your children first, which sounds terrible saying it like that, but I know, like, I see this often. I see it a lot, and guilty of it in my own life too sometimes, where we just, like, the kids are always first before your relationship with your spouse. Like,
mhm.
there has to be a healthy balance. It can't just be like just kids, kids, kids all the time. You have to foster your relationship and keep it healthy, keep it interesting, keep it fun. You can't just completely neglect it and only focus on your kids 24/7 and then wonder why your relationship is in shambles. What do you think
Yeah, I
about
know
that?
that. And I'm like so guilt. Like, Mike and I are both so guilty of that too, because we put in a lot of effort with the girls and we tend to not put that same effort into each other. But we've started recently doing date nights again. And I mean, it's been almost 4 years and we haven't, up until now, had steady date nights. I mean, we would have them like once a year maybe before. It was crazy. But it's very important. I never understood how important it was until we started just doing it. And, just sitting at a restaurant and talking like we used to, not talking about the girls, not like, monitoring them throughout a whole meal and dealing with them and then they interrupt. And, it's just like
Yeah.
nonstop with kids. They want to be the
Yeah.
center of attention.
And it's just like another thing that society makes you feel like, oh, your kids are number one, kids are number one, which, yeah, all of that. I'm not saying they're not, but, it just gets taken too far sometimes, where people don't understand that we're neglecting all of our other relationships just to just to keep the kids number one. And then a lot of times it ends up creating toxic relationships with our kids, by making them feel like they're just more
Like the
important than
center of
everything
your
else.
universe.
Yeah, and we'll get into that later because I have a lot to say about that.
No, I mean, like, I definitely agree. You have to be able to find something that you can do with your spouse, that just you and your spouse do, to like connect at the end of the day or at whatever point during the day. Because I know that's another thing, is like you can get to this place where you're just you're like roommates almost. You're like
Yeah.
living the life together, but you're not connecting on like a lover partnership kind of level. And you're kind of acting more as like friends instead.
And
You
it's
know,
so important. It's so important to, like, keep your romantic life alive. You don't want to just become a team that's taking care of kids all the time. And then, you'll wonder why you're depressed, why your life feels empty, like, because there's more to life than that. And your relationship is important.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So get out for a date night, prioritize your spouse, and, spend time with them at the end of the day, whether that's just like, you have to think, I guess another big thing is to like figure out what your like love language is with your spouse, and some people are into physical touch, and maybe at the end of the day they want to cuddle on the couch and watch TV or something.
That's what Nick and I like. Like, that's our favorite thing. Like, we don't care to go. We like to stay home, and we like to just do Netflix and chill and lay down together and just talk, or like go in the garden together and talk. And that's like our favorite thing. Like, that really fulfills us. Whereas other people would hate that probably, but that's, like you said, it's really important to figure out.
Yeah, and I'm like, we're kind of big on acts of service in my house, and like just doing things. Like, I do a lot of stuff, that would probably stress Mike out. He like gets stressed out about having to make doctor's appointments and like deal with that kind of like paperwork, business kind of household stuff. And so, I like manage all that stuff, and that's something that I do for him. And it's also my love language. So it's like, I enjoy doing that, as well. But then, there gets to be a breaking point too sometimes where you just feel like you're doing too much, and you just have to communicate that or understand that they're filling their role too, just like I said before, So, and like, kind of talking about that is, communication, talking to them, understanding where they're coming from, understanding when you're wrong, and apologizing. So this week,
That's a big one.
I know. We are planning a trip overseas, and I really wanted to go to another place on the itinerary, and it was going to be like 3 hours there and 3 hours back, basically. And I was really excited about it. I really wanted to do it, and I went to Mike, and Mike had just prepared like this whole itinerary. It didn't have anything like that on it because he didn't know really that I wanted to do that. And I was like, well, wait. He was probably feeling really proud that he had put this itinerary together, And then I was like, well, hold up. I really want to go to, this other place. And he was like, well, I don't want to do that. It's too far out of the way. Like, that's not going to work. He kind of just like shut it down. And my feelings were very hurt. And I started to silent treatment for a couple minutes. And then I was like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna just say how I feel. And I was like, I didn't like that, how you just like shut it down. You didn't even say like, let's talk about it later, or whatever. And he was like, well, like, I didn't really like that you just like sprung this on me, and how he just made this whole itinerary, and then I got really mad, and I was like, well, I'm not the nicest person when I'm mad. So I said mean things. I was just like, well, you can go F right off then, that's like my retort. Like, when I'm really angry, I'm like, all right, F off, and he like hates that. That's some fighting words. So then he kind of came upstairs, and like a couple minutes later, I was like, that didn't go how I wanted it to go. Like, if I could have been cool and just said my piece, then maybe he would have apologized to me later, which is what I wanted. But instead, I was aggressive, and I offended him even worse than he did to me, And so then I had to apologize, but I did. And then he immediately was like, yeah, I understand why you're upset, and I just shut it down, and I shouldn't have said that. And then it was like,
all better. I know. It's like such a good feeling to have closure to an argument, like, when you have an argument and there's no apology, no like understanding or conclusion, like, it's just such an awful feeling. Like, there needs to be some closure, and it doesn't mean that you have to agree always, but there needs to be like some respect shown for each other's feelings, or whatever it is. That's just so important. I feel like apologies are so important. I feel like Nick was always reluctant to actually say sorry. He would show it in his actions, but I would always take it as more of like, okay, like, I'm over it now. You need to just forget about it. And I'm happy again. Let's just get along, with no apology. And that would get to me. But now he finally apologizes, and I love it. Apologies are important, and don't feel like you're too good to say sorry. like, or too prideful to say sorry.
And don't wait either, because I have this mentality, like maybe I'm like a nihilist or whatever, but I always just think like the next minute in life is not guaranteed. And like, what if something happened to your partner or whoever you're fighting with in that moment, and that's how you left things? And therefore,
Yeah.
like, I never leave things longer than what I have to, because that's always in the back of my head, you know?
So another thing that really hurts our relationships with other people and just hurts ourselves, our lives, our mental state is victim mentality. I feel like I've encountered that with so many people in my life. I feel very passionate about it. So many people are just so lost in life, feeling like, why does this always happen to me? I'm so unlucky, everything goes wrong for me all the time. Everybody is so mean to me. It just goes on and on. Or I could think of a million other topics of victim mentality, but victim mentality never gets you anywhere. Nobody is out to get you. Whatever kind of treatment you're receiving from others, a lot of times has a lot to do with you. I'm not going to say always. Sometimes we just have awful people in our lives, but we really need to be able to self-reflect on our own actions and realize that a lot of times we're receiving the same energy we're putting out. Mm-hmm. And even if it's not, you truly are the victim of a situation, I mean, you have to be strong. You can't dwell on it and worry or think like, there's no use in me doing this because, poor pitiful me. You have to rise above, be strong, and think about the future. Think about what you can do to be better and keep trying to grow and get out of the situation you're in. You just cannot sit in that toxic.
No, it's so toxic, and it doesn't do you any favors, and it can literally just ruin your whole life. And when you just keep letting that go and keep harboring and keep on down that path, it's just not going to do any favors in life. And trying to work to get out of that and take any tiny steps to get better in your situation and make the changes you need to feel better about yourself is so important. And it's like, I mean, everybody, I'm not saying we're perfect. Of course, we say that like every single episode. We're not perfect. We struggle through all the stuff we're talking about on a daily, sometimes on a daily basis, but it's up to you to live the life that you want to live. No one's going to make that happen for you.
Yes, and nobody owes you anything. The world does not owe you anything. Your spouse doesn't owe you any, well, I guess they kind of do. But you know what I mean? Like, I guess they owe you a lot. But anyway, the world doesn't owe you anything. I think a lot of people are just, they think they're owed so much and that they're supposed to just be given so much in life, and they just, instead of going out there and get it. And then they have this really just crappy attitude, feeling sorry for themselves so much. I mean, I see it on Facebook all the time, people just in the whole poor pitiful me thing, and they wonder why their lives are so unhappy. Like, you're not doing anything to change it.
Like, another thing about that is, like, people don't owe you anything. And this has been hard for me to understand. This is like talking about other relationships in your life, is understanding that other people are not perfect, and other people, especially your family members, are never going to live up to the expectations that you have of them.
Yeah.
And that has been, I've been working on this majorly. I've always struggled with my mom for my whole life with her addictions and things like that. We've always had a hard life, but, now that the girls are, in her life, and it's great to see her love my kids, it's amazing. So it's like, struggles with family sometimes they're not going to be the person that you want them to be or that you may need them to be. And again, they don't owe you anything, even if they're your parents. Like, unfortunately, they're grown adults, and, you're not going to change them into being a different person to meet your needs or wishes or wants or whatever.
That's important, though. I think a lot of times we're looking for other people, like our family, our friends, spouse, whoever, to fulfill our, like, to make us happy. That they need to do whatever that's going to make us happy. But happiness comes from within. You are the creator of your own happiness, your own joy and fulfillment in life. And if you are relying on other people to fill that void, you're always going to be disappointed, because like you said, no one is going to fulfill your exact expectations of them.
Yep. And you have to just be accepting of, like, especially with your family's not going anywhere. And unless they're harming you in horrible, toxic ways, a lot of times you just have to meet them where they are, accept them from who they are, understand that they're not going to be this person that you want them to be, and find a way that you can live with that and still love them for who they are, and let go of your expectations of them. And that has been, I mean, that's like been such a big growth area for me in the past year. I think major growth for me, is learning that and stop being disappointed in people, and all that stuff. So I am really
It's a
big
hard
into
one.
that. It's so hard.
It is hard, you know. And then a lot of times when people don't meet your expectations, or like the way they live is too toxic for you to be around often. I mean, sometimes we have to put up painful boundaries that we really want them in our lives. We want to be around them more, but at the same time, the way they live is just going to affect your happiness or your mental health or whatever it is. So, I mean, we just, like, we have to love them where they are and only allow them in our lives as much as it's healthy to allow them, you know.
Yeah, having healthy boundaries with people is very important as an adult, and also to show your children what healthy boundaries look like with other people, so that they're not in a toxic situation later in life and think that it's okay.
Yeah.
And we talked about apologizing when you're wrong earlier, and I mean that's big with your children too. Whenever you do something wrong to your kids, you need to apologize to them. That's, if you want your kids to mirror that behavior and apologize when they're wrong, but you're not doing it to them, then I mean, how are they going to learn unless you show them? Kids don't learn by like you telling them what to do. They learn by looking and seeing and witnessing.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, we can't just have this attitude. I mean, I don't know how many people have that attitude of just like, I'm the parent and I'm always right. I mean, if you have that attitude, you really shouldn't. Like, we're always going to be wrong. We're not perfect. And I think it brings so much relief to your children. Like, so say you flew off the handle and yelled at them and, said something that really hurt their feelings. I mean, that's like such a shitty feeling as a mother or father, like when you hurt your kids' feelings like that or you fly off the handle. So it's telling them, apologizing for that and letting them know that your behavior was unacceptable, that you should never act that way, is like such a huge teaching moment for them. Like, they learn so much from that. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, you're my parent, but you do make mistakes, and just because you did this doesn't mean it's okay. Like, it just, I don't know, it teaches them so much, and then you can just see the relief in them and in yourself. It's just so important.
Yeah, young kids are so forgiving and they don't hold on to that, I don't think. I hope not, because I mean, yes, that's real, like yelling and all that stuff. I mean, I try to be so good about that, but there are days where I've had enough and I just like snap and yell and am not nice. I'm snarky, and that's not a behavior I want to teach them. But I always sit down and tell them that I was wrong and that I'm sorry, and that I don't want to treat them that way.
Yeah, like many times I've had to tell my kids sorry, that I would tell them, like, Mom is sorry, I got really angry with you because I was really upset at something else and it had nothing to do with you, and I ended up taking my anger out on you, and that was really wrong of me. You should never take your anger out on someone else when it has nothing to do with them, and I just feel like that teaches them a lot. Like, that teaches, that's going to help them to be more mindful of when they are angry, to not take it out on others. Like, I've seen that make a difference in my son. I've seen him actually say those words like, please don't talk to, he would tell like my daughter, please don't talk to me right now, I'm really aggravated, I don't want to be mean to you, you know. And I feel like it has a lot to do with me apologizing for when I did it, you know, because now he can be aware of that, whereas otherwise probably wouldn't have even realized he was doing that.
Yeah, and then the next step of that is to forgive yourself for doing that. And that's something that I struggle with as well.
Whew.
Is to just let it go,
Me too.
to understand like I'm a human and I get aggravated and I was triggered and it's okay, you know. It's not the best, but it's going to be okay, you know.
Yeah, I struggle with that big time. Like, I lose sleep over it. I have mom guilt so bad, and like I'm a pretty good mom. like not to like, you know, toot my own horn, but like I'm a good mom.
Yeah.
But like when I make mistakes, I'm so hard on myself, and like I bring myself to tears over it like all the time. And it's hard, but it is important. Forgiving yourself is so important, because then you'll just start to spiral. You know, you'll start to spiral on this like negative, putting yourself down. I'm a terrible mom, and like I will anyway. Like I'll start to spiral into this like phase of just like being really negative to myself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like connection, it goes, you know, we have to be connected with ourselves as well. Be able to forgive ourselves, and all that stuff is important, just as much as being forgiving to anybody else. I mean, if you can't forgive yourself, then how are you going to forgive anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, we talking about relationships with other people, but like you're saying, like a healthy relationship with yourself is probably first and foremost, you know. We really have to be good to and kind to ourselves.
Introspective in the first place. Absolutely.
Yes, introspective, definitely.
Introspective is everything.
Yeah, like if you can't recognize your own faults, or you know, or your strengths, or what, you have to be able to see yourself from the outside and understand, you know, see what you're doing to even be able to start to make change. It's kind of like denial, you know. You have to recognize there's a problem before you can fix it.
Yep. And like talking about kids, and one thing is, you know, understanding that our kids are not responsible for how we feel. That's like a huge thing. Like I really try not to tell them, well, you made me sad or whatever. And it's like you want to say that because it feels like that you should communicate that they, like, you know, made you feel bad or whatever. But ultimately, like, we're adults and they're children, and they're not responsible for our emotions. You know, we are responsible for our own emotions. And it's a burden to put that on our children and make them feel like they have the power to make you happy or sad or angry or whatever, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that is a big, that puts a big responsibility on them.
Yeah, because it makes them feel like they have to do a certain thing or else you're going to be upset, or, you know, like, oh, I can, you know, that they're responsible for your happiness. You know, I know growing up, like, I felt that way, like, that I could help control my mom's emotions and things like that. And that's, like, not cool to put that burden on a child.
Yeah, I felt that way a lot, too, growing up. And that was a huge burden. Like, that was a huge burden. And and
I'm not talking about, like, if they do something bad, like, you're going to get, like, you don't want them to know that you're going to be angry. I mean, like, obviously, like, you're going to get angry and they're going to, like, see that, but, like, to put the responsibility on them, I think is too much.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, we kind of talked about it earlier, is the modeling behavior you want to see. So, you know, one thing that I struggle with is, like, normal agitations, like dropping something and be like, oh God, oh, you know, like just aggravation and stuff. Yeah. And those like quick bursts of negative energy, you know, that I have. And that, like, you're going to see that in your kids. If you slam the door when you get mad, your kid's going to slam the door when they get mad, you know?
Yes. And that is such a hard one, especially for me. And it really stings when you get that reassurance from your kid that you do that, you know, because then you see them doing it and you're like, oh, you know, they learned that from you. And it's like such a toxic behavior, you know, like, or like if I do something dumb, I'll be like, oh, I'm so stupid. And I hear my kids say that, and I'm like, we don't say that. But I know that I say that. And I'm like big on them having self-love and all of that. But it's like, I need to role model that with myself more, you know? but it's super important. Like you said, they learn so much more from our actions than from what we say.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
it's and that goes back to having a healthy relationship with ourselves and respecting ourselves and loving ourselves and really being mindful of how we treat ourselves and talk to ourselves, because we are role modeling that to our children. So it has to start with us.
Yeah, I know, like when I was growing up, a big thing was like talking horribly about our bodies all the
Oh,
time. And, oh, I'm so fat, and like I'm so ugly, and my hair is like this. And,
yep.
just on and on and on about this negative self talk that we got, I think, from older generations in our lives. And, I feel like now, like, I do not talk about my body in any negative way ever. Like, I will not, like, I'm bad about it. Like if I kind of sometimes do want to say stuff like, "Oh, I feel FAT right now," I'll just like spell it out where they don't know. But it's just like, why even go there? Like our
Yeah.
body is our temple. It's how we move around in this life and why we get to experience this. And we should be thankful for whatever we have that is serving us.
Yeah, you definitely like, and if you have already done it, don't beat yourself up because I have.
Yeah.
But try your hardest not to body shame yourself in front of your kids. I mean, because that's something like, all the body shaming that from when I was a kid to now, like it's hard to stop. Like it's hard
Yeah.
to ever get out of that cycle. And like I've done a lot of work on myself with that, and I've come a very long way, but I still struggle a lot. Like I still constantly critique myself in the mirror and like always judging myself or comparing, and I never ever ever want my kids to feel like that. And so I try to never do it in front of them. But and I'm hoping by them not seeing that, that they won't struggle with it as bad, because once that seed is planted, it's a hard one.
Yeah, and
To,
our society is like so bad about that as it is. I mean, it's getting
yeah,
more inclusive now than it ever has been before, and that's great. Like in advertisement and stuff like that, seeing people of all sizes, shapes, color, everything. But there's
it's
still a
still
lot of
tough.
like, TikTok and Instagram models, and like you can't compare to that, and it's not healthy to like try to
Yeah.
like be that ideal person, look the best all the time and all that stuff. So, but that's
Yeah.
another thing. Like, I feel like this year I've worked a lot on, I mean, not worked a lot on, but just feeling better about my body, and
Yes.
myself without makeup and stuff like that.
That's something I've been working on a ton. And like I starting on that journey, I didn't really think I would get far, just because I knew how toxic my thinking was about myself. But I
Hmm.
really have. I've gotten very far. And like I feel really good about myself. I probably feel better about myself than I ever have in my life.
Yeah,
And
same.
I mean, I'm not my prettiest. I'm older now, like I'm not I'm not at the best. I'm not at my peak or whatever. But I am I am very happy in my skin, and it feels great. It really does.
Yes. You have to accept yourself inside and
Yeah.
out, all the flaws and everything, um, to fully be able to appreciate, your body and your mind and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
we kind of talked about modeling behavior with kids and how to regulate emotions, or how regulating your emotions is so important with your kids because it teaches them how to regulate their emotions. But also, like just connection in general. So, like, my big thing is to be connected with the girls, especially, and to show them I'm listening, and, you know, that I'm on their side and all that stuff. Because ultimately, if our kids don't get a connection from us, then they're going to look elsewhere for a connection. They're going to go to their peers for
Yes.
connection and for guidance. And, when they go to their peers for that guidance and that connection, that's, they're so influenced at a young age, and you don't want that influence to go into the wrong hands. So
Yeah.
it's important to maintain your connection with your kids and not be just, on the couch watching TV every day and not interacting with your kids at all. Like that's just so
Yeah,
horrible
like
for them.
yeah, and have deep, meaningful conversations. I mean, not that kids love getting into those deep, real deep conversations, but like talk about meaningful things. like you said, just try to actually connect with them. Do some things that they enjoy for at least a few minutes out of the day or here and there, like, some kind of activity that they really like. Just try to connect and relate to them. Let them feel,
valued. And
yeah.
yeah, like one thing, I know this other like influencer lady, she does special time. That's like her thing. And like for 10 minutes every single day, which is a big commitment, even though it's like 10 minutes, it seems like it's a nothing, but
I know
still
it
struggle.
is, though.
Just like to take 10 minutes and say, okay, what do you want to do? We'll do whatever you want to do for 10 minutes. I'm going to start the clock. I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm not going to get interrupted. Like, this is just me and you. And
Yes.
they'll tell you, okay, I want to play Play-Doh or whatever, and you'll just sit there and you'll suffer through it, whatever it is. And just use that time to just play with them. And then maybe for the last couple minutes, you can try to have some meaningful conversation. Now that you've connected, you can say, I really love you. Or maybe you can bring up something that happened and be like, yeah, I wonder what happened. Like, can you tell me about what you were thinking in this moment that you did whatever,
Yeah.
like try to get understanding and show them that you're like a safe place.
Definitely. I think it's so important for your kids to know that you are a safe place to come to with any and everything, that there's not going to be harsh judgment or punishment. I actually just had to do that with my daughter. I had a friend over, and you know how when you walk in a room and they freeze, bug-eyed, like they're doing something wrong that they're not supposed to. Mm-hmm. And this is a reoccurring theme with this friend. And because my daughter, she's not perfect, but she's not known for being like sneaky. And so I didn't like that. The friend left, and I was like, what were y'all doing in there? I probably could have went about that a little better, but she was she didn't want to admit it. She was like, nothing. So I let it go. The next day I was like, okay, hey, I just want to know, just tell me yes or no. You don't have to tell me what you were doing, but I just want to know yes or no. Were you doing something you weren't supposed to? And I said, like, you're not going to be in trouble. I just want to know. And she was like emotional, and scared at first, but I think like it hit her that she really isn't going to be in trouble, because this isn't the first time we've been through a situation like this. And she's like, yes. And I left it at that. I didn't pry to know exactly what it was. And I was just happy to know that she told me the truth and I got answers. And now I'm not letting her play with that girl anymore. But and I didn't punish her. I thanked her for being honest with me. And now and this, she's done it. We've done this before, and she always ends up being honest with me. And it's because she feels safe. She knows I'm not gonna yell at her or punish her, and that's just really important. I know that punishment and everything or consequences are important in a lot of situations, but you have to pick and choose your battles sometimes, because It's really important for your kids to know that they can come to you. You don't want them to be scared to come to you.
Yeah, and also in that same vein as like, consequences and all that stuff, but also pick your battles with what you need to control, because kids inherently want to have control over their lives. Everything is controlled by us in their lives, from what they eat to the clothes they have and the toys they play. They're under our control. And so if you can give them back some control in their life, then like you don't need to be in control of every single thing. Pick your battles. Like, is it something that I need to set a firm boundary on, or is it something that I'm just trying to control right now because we're just like dictators?
Yeah, you're right.
I'll just say no for like no reason. When I think about it, I'm like, did I really have to say no to that? Like, why did I say no? That's
so important, and I'm glad you brought that up. Like, I have tried to be very mindful about not saying no for just no reason. Like, and when I do say no, I like to give them a little explanation as to why, to help them understand why I said no. That way they can understand that I'm not just being a dictator, So, and I think that goes a long way with them.
I think it does. I mean, just trying to show them how to interact with people. I mean, because ultimately they're going to be parents one day too, and we need to show them how to operate in the world and how to be mindful and respectful and forgive and, all that stuff.
Just how to work through difficult situations. I think, like, we're always striving to like teach them the ideal situation, but I think it would be really great just to make sure we're role modeling how to work through the difficult ones, because they're always going to encounter these difficult situations. So it's very important that they understand how to maneuver through it.
Yes, for sure. And, with kids, like, parents always want their kids to be, I don't want to say perfect, but to be good and well behaved and to listen to what you tell them and stuff like that. And if you can be connected with them, show them you're on their team, explain why you say no, and give them control in their life when you can, then they're more likely to obey you in the things that matter. It's like it all works together. If you're just like, no, I said no, now shut up, go to your room, like, I don't want to hear a thing from you right now, like, they're going to resent you. It's not going to be beneficial relationship. Like, I'm talking about connection to make bonds with your children, lifelong bonds that you'll have, that way they love you and respect you now, and also you have a chance of having a relationship with when they're an adult, like a good relationship, teenage good relationships all around. I mean, that's why I do what I do and hope that I'll build that connection and be able to have good relationships, but it's always hard.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Being
don't
a
want them
parent
like,
is hard.
oh God, being a parent is like the most difficult thing ever. But you don't want them resenting you, because that gives them every reason to not listen to you.
And to go to their peers and find someone else to validate their feelings.
And that's
make
the last thing you want them to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I know, like, they're like electronics with kids is hard. I mean, electronics with adults is hard. Like, me staying off social media is freaking hard.
It is. So I struggle with this a lot. So I'm in the homeschool community. I homeschool my kids, and a lot of these parents, they say they don't, not all of them, but a lot of them, they don't allow any electronics. At least that's what a few of them had told me anyway. That they don't do any like iPads or like video games and stuff like that.
CDs.
I feel like that sounds really great, and I really like wish I would have started that way with my kids. But then at the same time, I feel like, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong on this, so I'm not really necessarily giving advice on this. I'm just explaining where I stand and giving people something to ponder about. But I feel like we as a society, like, technology isn't going anywhere. If anything, it's only going to become more and more in our lives, a more strong presence in our life. And I feel like it's probably important to allow it in our children's lives and to teach them now as children how to, like I said, earlier, how to maneuver in the world of hard decisions and difficult conversations. They need to learn how to maneuver in the world of technology in a healthy way. And if we don't let them have it at all now, one thing to worry about is that they might just like go all crazy with it once they finally get their hands on it as an adult. Or another is they'll just have a really unhealthy relationship with it. And I feel like it's really hard for us as adults with technology and social media today, because we never really learned how to have a healthy relationship with it. It was just, given to us, and we were left to our own devices. And I think it would be really wise to, of course, certain things have to be introduced at appropriate times. Like, you're not going to want to give your 8-year-old Facebook. But, but like certain things.
1-year-old YouTube.
Yeah. So you want to, the way I think I'm approaching this is I'm going to allow certain things at certain times, and I'm only allowing them to be on it for a certain amount of time per day. They have to finish their priorities for the day, like chores and lessons have to be done. And even if chores and lessons are done before 4 o'clock, they still have to wait till 4 o'clock to get on them. And then it has to go off by like 8. And like, if I hear, so now I feel like I let my daughter have the Oculus, which I regret now. I don't think that was a good decision. I think she was too young. And but now I'm in deep now, so it's kind of hard to take it away. But when I feel like it's kind of teaching her to talk to people recklessly. You know how these kids are on those games, like, oh, you loser, like just talking like that's so stupid. And I don't like that kind of talk, like, whatsoever. I don't allow my kids to talk like that to others, or just talk like that at all. And so if I hear her talking reckless like that, I take it away and I tell her, like, I don't care what the other kids are saying. You can't act like that. That's not an appropriate way to act. Like, just because a bunch of other kids are doing it does not make it okay. So it's like just teaching them lessons like that, but also making sure we introduce things at the appropriate time, because she wasn't ready for that. I shouldn't have put her on that.
Yeah, and I'm a shelterer, like majorly sheltering my kids. But, I've let them watch TV and stuff. But I'm really careful about what I let them watch and how often we do it. But, there's days where I don't feel good. And, like, honestly, if I'm feeling, like, really, like, upset and, like, ready to pop off any minute, like, the TV is what we need to do. Because I am not in a good headspace right now. And I shouldn't push myself to be super mom, to do arts and crafts projects, or all this other stuff. Like, I just need to chill, and I need for them to just zone out for a bit so that I can get my mind right, and that's okay. I can't beat myself up for that. TV was a parent for me today,
and that's
okay. What it is.
Yeah, I
it's
think
like sometimes we give a lot, and sometimes we don't give very much, and that's okay.
And that's another topic. Like, I think a lot of parents I see now, and myself included, like, we make our kids dependent on us for so much. We don't allow them any independence to make their own food, or to, I don't know, just random tasks. We make them rely on us for all of it, and then we get all overstimulated and upset because it's just too much. It's too much. And it is too much. I don't think as parents that we were ever supposed to have our children be so dependent on us. Just because our kids are little doesn't mean there's still a lot of things that they could do on their own, and we're not allowing them. We're not allowing them to learn. We're causing them to be dependent on us, and then getting frustrated with them for depending on us so much. We need to allow them to learn, make mistakes. They're gonna, they might bruise their knees or whatever. I don't know. We have to let them learn and become independent, because we're disabling them. That's something I wasn't very aware of in the beginning, but Nick, my husband, started to point those things out right away. And especially recently, like I was still like, I have an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old, and we have food in the fridge oftentimes that they can just microwave or heat up themselves, and I was still doing all of that for them, and I was just like, and I have a lot of other things going on. He's like, you're doing this, you're making them rely on you for all of those things. Like, they could do that themselves, and they can make a lot of things themselves. And I started to teach them to do these things, and I if they refuse to, because oftentimes they'll be like, oh, I don't want to, or then they just won't eat because they don't feel like doing it, and I don't let them eat. Then they don't eat, and they're going to be okay. They're going to be fine. Like, they're going to go make it when they're hungry,
That's right.
So,
and then, even, like, I have smaller kids. I have 4-year-olds, and my thing with them is also, like, control is, like, letting them do things. Like, this morning I was making scrambled eggs, and Arabella wanted to help stir the eggs in the pot, and I, like, did not want to let her do that. I'm like, first of all, I'm like type A OCD, and I want things done my way, which is a barrier. But also I'm like, oh gosh, she's gonna make a mess, she's gonna do it wrong, all these things. And I'm like, what do I have to lose by letting her do this? Like, she's getting experience and doing things for herself, and she's getting control, which she needs to have. So I let them do it, and you know what? They didn't even mess anything up this morning. So it was good stuff.
I know, I was the same way, like, not wanting them to do it the wrong way, wanting it done my way. It was definitely something to get past. And a lot of times now, like, they fold their own clothes now. I'm teaching Bentley to put his own clothes to wash, and a lot of times they don't do it the way I want it, but you know what? I don't have to do it, and it's getting done. And they're learning valuable skills, and they're becoming more independent, and it's really great.
And in the same respect, also, like, whenever you're overwhelmed and you need help and stuff, like asking for help from your partner, I struggle with that too. Like letting other people help you. And
Yeah.
that goes for all relationships, you know, letting people help you and like helping other people when they need it. Like that's kind of like jumping totally, but like kind of getting away from kids and how they, we talked about family and spouses and kids and stuff, and talking about friends and like how important it is to be friends with people and, have a community and do nice things for other people and other people do nice things for you. Like, for instance, I have a neighbor that's similar age to me, and like she went to Whole Foods yesterday and she's like, hey, I'm going to Whole Foods, like, do you need anything? And I like was just thinking like, oh my god, what am I going to do for dinner? I have nothing defrosted. And so I was like, yes, can you please give me a fish and a lemon? And she did. She dropped it on my doorstep. I Venmoed her back. It didn't take any extra effort for her. She was already going to the grocery store. And then in return, I had a friend of mine who was over yesterday, and she was like, oh man, like after she had a kid with her young kid, she was like, after I leave here, I need to go to Whole Foods and get a dairy-free, gluten-free pizza. And I was like, oh, you know what? I have one in my freezer and I'm good with it. You have it. And then her daughter like started flipping out and she was like, I wouldn't have even been able to go to Whole Foods. So like, thank you so much. So it's just like doing nice things for people feels good.
It does feel good. And it makes all the difference, It's like that good karma, You start to attract the energy that you're putting out there. Yes. And you start being kind and helpful and loving to others, you're going to start to receive that energy. I firmly believe in that. I think that is very much true. And just try it in your life and you'll see, Yeah,
and it's nice. And then like, it's hard to like friends, especially being a mom and having all these things that we juggle, so many things, and to maintain friendships with people. And I know you suck at this.
Yeah, I still don't have a solution for that.
See, I'm like more extroverted. I always thought I was an introvert, and I don't know where I got that from, but I'm extroverted.
No, you're not.
And I'm just like constantly like, I'll think of somebody. If I have a dream, like I'll just have a dream about somebody, and the next day I'll like text them, be like, hey, what's up, and like we'll pick up wherever we left off, and but I do get butthurt sometimes because I feel like I like put myself out there a lot, and like maybe I don't receive that back. It's like the only reason why I talk to X person is if I reached out to them, not because they ever reach out to me.
Yeah, I think there is like a very gray area there, because for example, like I'll do nice, kind gestures to people, but if you're going to call me all the time and expect me to call you all the time and chat and stuff, it's just not going to happen. And it's not because I don't love you. It's not because I'm not thinking of you. It's because I'm just fucking busy. Like, and I've got 3 other beings that I'm just like devoting so much time to. I mean, it's like hard. I honestly don't know how you are thinking of all of these people all the time and keeping in contact with all these people. Like, because
I don't go and call people, but like if I have a thought about somebody or a memory or something, then typically I'll just text them and be like, hey, like what's up, or whatever. And so whenever you have these thoughts about people, that's your brain's way of telling you that you need to reach out to them.
Yeah, I guess I just can't like find the time to sit there and hold a conversation half the time because I'm like literally like running, doing things. And it's like I have so many things pulling my attention away from what I'm trying to do already. To have another thing pulling my attention away is going to be just overstimulation. And it's just going to steal peace from me,
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying like I reach out to every single person all the time, but people, like the relationships that are important to me, then I foster them,
Yeah.
And it's not every person I've ever like been in contact with, but there's certain people that I enjoy and have enjoyed in my life, and I like to, periodically check up with them when I think about them.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something I try to work on. It's not my strength at all.
No, and it's hard for introverts to be like that because they're not like it. Like it kind of takes the extrovert in the relationship to be like the pusher. I'm the pusher.
It is like I was thinking about this the other day. Like almost every friendship. I mean, you and I were cousins. We've always known each other, but every friendship I think I've ever had was not because I went and made that friendship. People always come to me. And
Yeah.
then I become like the extroverted invert, and I can talk and be like fun and all of that, but like I don't initiate conversation. Like I just never have. It's just not in my personality, and I am very introverted. Like I can be happy by myself, I think forever, and it does. I just don't know. It is definitely personality types though. And that's
Yep.
definitely something to be mindful of for people, because I do see a lot of people that are like you, that they get butt hurt when they aren't, when people aren't reaching out the way they reach out. But not everybody's built the same,
Yeah. Yep. I'll
Yeah.
continue pushing, my people. You know who you are.
Yeah. And but like introverted people like that, they need the extrovert to do that, and I mean that might just be that the extrovert's role in life, to
Yep.
be the extrovert.
Yeah. That's
Not
why
like
you
your whole
need
meaning in
different
life.
people.
That's not what I mean. But just, like your role in a relationship.
Yeah. No, so I definitely think we like talked about some great things today. Definitely, work on your relationship with your spouse, your kids, your family, meet them where they are. And reach out to some old friends that you loved, that you maybe you're not going to have a conversation on the phone, but maybe you can have like a couple texts, go reach out to one person and see how that goes. Because I think relationships are everything in our lives, and they're so special, and they're what makes us human. And we only get a short amount of time on this earth to be with the people that we love. So make sure that you are showing them that love. So we hope that you enjoyed this podcast. Again, please please subscribe, share with a friend, hit us up, make some comments. Let's talk. If you have a different point of view or a suggestion or solution, then, share it.
Yeah, definitely. Because, I mean, we're just putting these ideas out there. We would love to, communicate and see what other people think. This is just things that we find work in our lives and have worked really well. But, of course, there's how's that saying go? Many ways to skin a cat.
There's lots of growth to be had.
Yeah. So
let's connect.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we had a good one. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.